Alrighty, welcome back. Just to shut up and ball. We are hopefully this is the final product. We can get this out. John and I have been dealing with the technical difficulties this week, mainly on my end. My computer basically just wasn't cooperating. I think that's the best way to say it. It is for now. So hopefully, if you're hearing this, we made it. If watching, we made it. Just real quick, because we missed out on the Tuesday or early in the week episode. The reaction episode, we're just gonna do the picks this week. Maybe John and I will probably include a little bit of how we felt about the team from last week in our picks. So hopefully y'all don't mind that. Sorry about that. Hopefully this doesn't become an issue again. But regardless, how's your week been, John? Besides taking out the technical difficulties that we've been dealing with.
It's all right. I mean, obviously you're having the stuff on your end. My webcam crapped out, so now we're on my laptop one. So if you're on YouTube and my quality sucks, I apologize. But
It's okay.
other than that, pretty good week. Not a whole lot going on. NBA started back up, so that's been fun to where, when the NFL is not going, there's, some solid sports on. World Series started. Not the biggest fan of baseball, but I like when, it matters, 7 games and that's it. So it's a good week for sports.
Yeah. It's a great time. I've been loving basketball. Spurs had a good start. Really should have beat the Lakers at the night, but we didn't. But it's okay. We're a young team. But anyways, we're here to talk football, like we mentioned. So we're going to dive right into the picks. Head first. Whoops. Sorry. As you might see on YouTube, I got a little bit of a new setup, did some changing around. Basically got a new desk. Shout out to my grandparents in D.C., my grandma Noompa. They really helped me out with that. So I got a new desk, but dealing with that. Anyways, we're diving right into the picks. The game that's going to be happening right now, if you're listening, it already happened, but we're making our picks now. So, you can tell us if we're right or wrong. The Arizona Cardinals at Arizona, they are favored by 6.5, hosting whatever is left of my Green Bay Packers. Top 3 receivers are out. Devontae Adams and Lazard due to COVID. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he's been on IR with a hamstring, and I guess he wasn't ready to come back health-wise. So, yeah, not looking great for my Packers. And J.J. Watt is out for the Cardinals, and per Adam Schefter's report today, he's probably going to be out for the rest of the year due to this shoulder surgery he's undergoing. But regardless, John, basically at this point, do you think Arizona will cover, or will Green Bay keep it close enough?
I'm going to take Arizona here. J.J. Watt, it does suck they're losing him, but they are getting Chandler Jones back, who's, missed a few games here. And honestly, it's just because of the receiving options. I don't know who Rodgers is going to have out there, and that just brings a lot of question marks, especially against a 7-0 team. I know that there's been a lot of stuff flying around of people being like, well, Rodgers is 6-0 against teams without Devontae Adams, but I just want to dive into the history of that 6-0 over the last 3 years because you just want to preface it.
Context is key.
Yeah, I'm going to read off all 6 of these matchups. The first one was against my Cowboys. We finished 8-8 that year. Aaron Jones went off for 4 touchdowns in that game. That was in 2019. That was when this 6-0 stretch over the last 3 years has started. Aaron Jones' game, he was monstrous. Once again, we were 8-8. So the Cowboys, we were a mediocre football team at best.
Your defense was not great, I think, right?
Weren't that great. And just overall, there wasn't a whole lot going on. I think that was the last year of the Jason Garrett era, or maybe it was the second to last. Either way, 8-8. The next game, also in 2019, against the Detroit Lions, they finished the year 3-12-1. So not
Detroit, yeah.
Not much to say about there. The next game, also in 2019, versus the Oakland Raiders, who were still Oakland at the time, I believe. And they finished 7-9. So once again, a mediocre team at best. Next game, 2019, against the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, that's a good team. Patrick Mahomes didn't play in that one.
Yep, that was the Matt Moore game.
Yeah, so
they're still close too. Yeah,
it was 31-24. So not a whole lot to talk about there. And the one really good win was last year against the Saints. They were a playoff team. Final years of Drew Brees' era. Saints were good last year, so can't really say much about that one. So that was a good win. But in that one, Alan Lazard was healthy. He's not playing tonight, so that's another key difference. And then finally, the last one was last year against the Atlanta Falcons, who finished 4-12. So pretty much all those wins are against average to below average teams or the Chiefs who didn't have Patrick Mahomes. So there's really only one win out of those six that is impressive. But like I said, Alan Lazard was in that. I don't know if Marquez Valdez-Scantling was. Regardless, the 6-0 stat about Devontae Adams is a little inflated, not a lot of context to it. I'm taking the Cardinals here. I just think all three of your top receiving options being gone, that's really tough to overcome. And I think it makes game planning on the Cardinals defense a lot easier because they don't have to deal with some primary threats. Now, I don't think the Packers offense is going to be terrible in this one. I'm not going to say they're going to be awful because, with Aaron Rodgers, you always have a chance. But I do think it'll be harder for them to keep up with Kyler Murray in that offense, especially with like Jair Alexander and some other, defensive guys not playing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Packer fan, and I'm right with you, man. I mean, you've seen my messages throughout the week. I'm not really expecting to win this game, especially now that Lazard is out and MVS was out. It's just I don't want to say no chance because maybe if the run game goes, if we can dominate the run game, might have a chance there. But I just feel like if Arizona was able to stop, the Bucs run game, which is overpowering power run, and then the Rams, which is a very similar system. Mike LaFleur, Sean McVay, both a part of that kind of Kyle Shanahan tree. So yeah, and then even though they lose J.J. Watt, I mean, just down the middle. I mean, the three linebackers have been amazing. Jordan Hicks, kind of been under talked about. Zaven Collins having a really good year. And then also Isaiah Simmons, which I loved what Adam Lefkoe tweeted. I think it was a couple weeks ago. Like, where are all the Isaiah Simmons haters now? Because he's having a good season, which once again, I think we mentioned it last year, does wonders when A, you have either like him have a full season under your belt, and B, also have a training camp where and OTAs where you're learning the position, getting better at it. Because at Clemson, they kind of just put him in a spot to do this, just chase this guy kind of man. He didn't know the responsibilities of just being a linebacker. He had to do different things. So now he's learning that, and especially with his two other studs. Middle of the field's tough. So even if some people would say it's going to be a Robert Tonyan game, I really don't think so. I'm not sure if he made your start sits, but not that it matters because it's going to come out. The game's going to be over before it comes out. But Tonyan would be a sit for me. Like if I was doing that, it would be a sit if we were able to do this sooner because I don't expect him to have a great day. But hey, he might just because he's the only really able, trustworthy body out there. I know Randall Cobb is too, but once again, those three have been just menaces in the middle, and I just don't think Cobb's not at the point of his career anymore where he's going to be doing that, and we don't have just the weapons around him. So enough of that spiel. Yeah, I'm going to Arizona as well, unfortunately, to win and cover. So not too much of a shock there, but we'll say we got a lot of differences, mainly in the afternoon slot, but we do have this next one here. The Atlanta Falcons, they are at home. Is it still the Georgia Dome, or is it? I think it's Mercedes-Benz, right?
Mercedes-Benz, yeah.
Which is confusing. I think the Saints ones also used to be Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, they're now like the
Superdome. I don't know.
Well, they're like sponsored by Caesars Palace or something like that now. Dang. Yeah, it's weird.
Anyways, yeah. By the way, quick note: Seattle threw me off last week because I'm used to being. I think it's like CenturyLink, and it's
CenturyLink.
Was it always CenturyLink, or was it something before that?
That's the name of the field, and now it's Lumen Stadium.
Yeah, now it's Lumens, and it threw me off. Anyway, that's just a weird side note. I hate when things change like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Atlanta Falcons, they are favored by 3.5 hosting the Carolina Panthers. Kind of these teams that kind of been going in opposite ways the past few weeks. Falcons got some good win against Miami last week. They've had some impressive ones, and I think the week before that, they beat the Jets in London. Week before that, so they've been trending up. Meanwhile, Panthers kind of been trending down since their 3-0 start. Sam Darnold hasn't been looking too well. So John, who are you going with here? You going with the Panthers, or are you sticking with the Falcons?
I'm gonna go with the Panthers. I don't really trust the Falcons defense to get pressure and mess with Sam Darnold the way that some of these other teams have, and that's really what's been the downfall of the Panthers offense. So I think that the Panthers can keep pace here. I'm not sure if they're going to win, but I do think they can keep it close. Matt Ryan's been playing really good, so like I said, I'm not sure if Atlanta loses this, but overall, it comes down to I'm not sure if I trust the Atlanta defense enough to be able to cover 3.5. So I'm going with the Panthers. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong about this one, just because the Panthers have sort of been in a hole the last 4 weeks.
I want to say so, yeah. I don't know the exact record off the top of my head, but
I think they've lost 4 straight, right?
4 straight. Yeah, they haven't had a bye, right?
No, I don't think
Okay,
so.
so that'd be 4. It's week 8. So yeah, I'm actually going with the Falcons here to win and cover. I just Sam Darnold. It's not all on him, but it hasn't looked that great. Been missing reads. It seems like teams have a kind of an idea of the Joe Brady offense. On top of that, so whenever he is, making the right reads, they kind of already know what to expect. We're kind of also seeing. I know Chuba Hubbard's been good statistically, but we're also, I think maybe this is why. But the loss of McCaffrey, they've lost a lot of elements to their offense with him being out. So it does scare me. Carolina's defense has been the only factor that's been consistent. They've been pretty good. It was still 5-3 going to the fourth quarter last game, and then the dam finally broke. They did all they could for 3 quarters. I mean, and that's what makes it tough for me to pick against them. But Atlanta's rolling right now. It seems like they're kind of getting there, finding their way on offense with Cordell Patterson. I think Mike Davis is no longer really getting much work. It's mainly Cordell Patterson in the background. They're finding different ways to use him. Kyle Pitts has had a couple of good games together, and Calvin Ridley's been okay, but he missed London due to the, I think, off the field thing, whatever he was dealing with, and hopefully he's okay and his family. But yeah, I imagine Calvin Ridley would have a good game here too. So yeah, I'm going with the Falcons. I think it's the first time I've gone with the Falcons this year, to be honest. This is more of a gut feeling because this was a very tough game to pick. So that is one of our differences. But now going on to a divisional matchup, the Buffalo Bills at Buffalo. They are favored by 13.5, hosting the Miami Dolphins. I think we both expect Buffalo to win. So the question here will be, John, do you think Buffalo will cover that spread?
Yeah, after the last time they played him, and it was 35-0.
Yeah.
I mean, Tua's been playing well, but I don't think they really have the weapons right now. A lot of people are unhealthy, especially in that wide receiver room. The Buffalo defensive line has been crazy. Gregory Rousseau has, developed a lot faster than people expected him to, and he's become a really key player on the defensive line. I just can't really see Miami having the pieces to deal with Buffalo and to make this relatively close, especially, Josh Allen's looking amazing and their secondary is banged up. I'm going with Buffalo.
And Buffalo, I'm going with Buffalo to cover as well. Another thing for me too, Buffalo is coming off a bye, so they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. On top of the fact that Miami's just kind of limping into this one, just lost a heartbreaker to Atlanta the previous week, and I think especially with all the distractions, are they going to trade for Tua? Are they going to trade for Deshaun Watson? Is Tua out of there? I feel like that's all kind of weighing down on them, and yeah, they're not even at home either. They got to travel up to Buffalo, and so. Yeah, get your tables ready, Buffalo. Circle those wagons. I think they're going to cover and win. So I'm not going to put much analysis into that because they've kind of owned Miami the past almost 2 years now because they won both matchups last year as well. So, alrighty. Now going on to the San Francisco 49ers. They are favored by 3.5, traveling to the Windy City, a.k.a. Chicago, to the Bears. So once again, Niners favored by 3.5 against the Bears. John, who do you have here in this exciting matchup?
I'm going to go with the Niners. We talked about it a few weeks ago when they played the Cardinals. They had success containing Kyler Murray. And, Justin Fields obviously is not Kyler Murray, but he's very similar style when it comes to his athleticism. And I just don't think that's going to present any problem for the Niners. Plus, overall, honestly, the Bears, they might be the worst offense in football, which is just crazy to say with the talent they have and the expectations, I would say, for Justin Fields, Allen Robinson, some of those guys. Part of it's not entirely their fault. Like David Montgomery's hurt. Damian Williams had COVID for a little bit there. Their left tackle who they drafted in the second round. I can't remember Tevin Jenkins. He hasn't played this year because of injury. So I mean, not all of it's their fault, but also once again, I mean, we talk about how we feel about Matt Nagy. I don't trust the Bears offense at all anymore.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
going with the Niners.
yeah, I mean, I'm going with the Niners too. Like they don't even. I don't think they even ran like. I think they. I forgot the stat, but they barely ran. They made him barely running Justin Fields, like using him in the option or as a quarterback keeper. And you just said it. That's the strength of it. It's very Kyler Murray-esque. I mean, you see Cliff Kingsbury out here. He'll do that, just a few times per game, maybe 2 or 3, just to keep the defense, just to have it in their mind. And then they'll do things off of that and such. And the Bears just aren't doing that. I'm with you. I don't understand their thought process. So I can go on and on about the Bears, but I'm going to keep this simple. Even though Jimmy G didn't have a great game last week, it was a monsoon. It was his first game back. Honestly, just from looking from the two, I think that's who they have to. If they want to win, that's who they should go with for this season. Lance still looks a little raw because I think at least Jimmy G is solid in the passing game. And then, especially with Elijah Mitchell back last week, he did pretty good in the run game as well. And San Francisco's front four is still good. Like we mentioned, Chicago's passing offense not great. So they still have a good front four, still have Fred Warner and the 2 solid safeties in the back. So, yeah, I think they'll slow Chicago down enough and win and cover this game. Sorry, Chicago fans, but we're both going with San Francisco to win and cover here. Don't think I even know a Bear fan. Don't think I've ever ran into one either. So, don't have to worry about that. I mean, that says a lot about them. But now going on to another divisional matchup. Cleveland Browns at Cleveland. They are favored by 3.5, hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is their first meeting since that fateful wild card where it all just blew up in Pittsburgh's face in the first quarter. So, John, do you believe in Cleveland to pull it off again, or do you think Pittsburgh gets their revenge here?
I'm going with Pittsburgh, and it's just because I don't know the status of Baker Mayfield, and there's just question marks on Nick Chubb still, even some of their offensive linemen. I think they were talented enough, even with their backups, to beat a Denver team. But Pittsburgh, we saw them even play Denver, and they looked good. They beat them. Just with the defense alone, we know their offense isn't very good, but that defense alone, I think, even if Baker does play, he's going to be banged up. Same with Nick Chubb. Same with the offensive guys. I just don't know how well they could do against that Pittsburgh front seven. And on the other side, it might not be pretty, but I think Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Claypool, some of those guys can make a play. And so I'm going Pittsburgh here. I will say, when you talk about it, if anyone's betting on these games, this is one that I probably wouldn't touch.
Yeah, this was a tough one to pick. And honestly, I'm kind of glad we get a spread here because I think I'm picking Pittsburgh regardless. I think even if they don't win, I think they'll keep it close. The defense is still pretty good. I think they're coming off a bye too, so they've also had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. But regardless, I think the defense will slow down the Browns' run attack. Their passing game hasn't been that great. We've already mentioned, even if Baker does play, him and Odell are just not on the same page. And if Baker doesn't play, it's Case Keenum, who, hey, is a solid backup. But once again, he's Case Keenum against this Pittsburgh defense. I don't expect them to run roughshod, whatever the term is, on Pittsburgh. I do. My only worry is Pittsburgh's offense versus Cleveland's defense, which was the issue last year when they turned the ball over, 3 or 4 times in that first quarter. But I expect, especially with the way they started the season, I think that the offense is going to be, like John mentioned, focus Najee Harris, maybe take a few shot plays with Big Ben, but kind of just manage Ben Roethlisberger so that, like we saw in the earlier games, he doesn't literally throw the game. So, I'm going with Pittsburgh as well. Thank you, spread, because it made it easier. So hopefully they either win and or cover. And shout out to my Pittsburgh fans, Onik and Garrett, and my grandfather, Bruce. Forgot about that. But now going on to NFC matchup. Once again, not the most thrilling. Philadelphia Eagles, they are favored by 3.5 going to Detroit. So anyways, John, do you think Man Campbell and the Lions get their first win here?
I don't know if they'll get the win, but I'm going to take the Lions to cover. They keep all their games close against even better teams than Philly, and I just don't really have any faith in the Eagles at all this year. I don't know. The Lions, they're scrappy. They come out. They They take risks. We saw last week, I think they converted an onside kick and 2 fake punts against the Rams. Like they're willing to do what it takes to win. It seems like they really want it. And for the Eagles, I can't say the same. Sirianni, I just question his play calling. Even defensively last week, they were really conservative late in the game against the Raiders, and it just felt boring because you're losing. It's the fourth quarter. You need a spark, and you're going to have your safety sit super far off, and back your corners all the way up so they can do whatever they want underneath. You just check downs or turning into 12-yard gains. Like I don't know. I don't really trust the Eagles play calling at all to do much. And I think the Lions are one crazy risk away from getting their first win.
Yeah, I think they'll keep it close regardless. And like you mentioned, Lions, like, it's what you want from every, like, because not every team does, especially when they're trying to get a win. Like, the Lions are literally, they're throwing the kitchen sink and everything, like John mentioned. Yeah. And there's an onside kick to start the game, I think, too, like, as well. Or that, or was it off their first, after the first drive? Regardless, it was like early in the first quarter. And then I think that drive that they got the onside kick, I think they ended up doing the fake punt as well to keep the drive alive. So, yeah, I love I love that as well. But regardless, I think except for maybe one or two games, they've been, like John mentioned, they've been in every game. So I'm going with them. They're the new spread kings like the Giants were last year. But regardless, yeah, going with Detroit to keep it close, and they're at home, so maybe home crowds will factor in. But yeah, and like we mentioned, I'm not too impressed with the Eagles' passing offense like we've seen in previous weeks. Not knock on Jalen Hurts fully, but just not overly creative, and also Jalen Hurts not the most polished passer as well. So both in agreement there for Detroit. But now going on to one of the other divisional matchups of the weekend, the Indianapolis Colts at Indianapolis. They are favored by 1.5, hosting the Tennessee Titans, fresh off their win against Kansas City. Who do you have here, John?
I'm going to the Titans. I was a bit surprised that the Titans were not favored here. I know it's in Indianapolis, and you get the home field advantage, but I don't know. I mean, sure, these teams, when they play, it tends to go back and forth, but I think the Titans have shown a lot this year. Derrick Henry is doing his thing. AJ Brown is finally starting to pick it up. And although their defense isn't amazing, they've had success against some good offenses like Kansas City last week, although Kansas City has been turning the ball over a ton. I don't know. I think that the Titans have some pieces. Harold Landry, I think he's second in the league in sacks right now, which nobody saw coming. That's something that we expected from him, with over the last 2 years, and it seemed like he never really figured it out, but he is this year. And so I think he can get some pressure on the Colts on that left side. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to take the Titans in this one just because they're the underdog, and I feel safer picking Derrick Henry and the gang.
Well, I'm going to Indianapolis. They've just been rolling on offense. It seems like Carson Wentz is finally comfortable and maybe healthy is also what helps. And they've gotten Jonathan Taylor going, and there just seems to be offense seems to be in a rhythm. And the defense, I think the defense is still good, and I think they'll be good enough, and they've seen Derrick Henry enough in the Titans offense. They know what they need to do to slow him down at least. Have to force Buckner, Darius Slater to do so. I am a little bit concerned about their pass defense. Xavier Rhodes really the only notable corner, and I'm not sure if he's even playing. I think he got hurt last game. He's been hurt like multiple times throughout the season. But regardless, I'm going with Indianapolis. I think that they'll have enough creative zones and such to slow down the passing game, and that they'll be able to slow down Derrick Henry. And I just don't really have a lot of faith in, I guess, at the end of the day, in the Titans' defense, that they'll be able to get enough stops to slow down Indianapolis, especially since they've been so good in so many ways. So I'm going with Indy here. So that is another one of our differences of the week. So now keeping it in the AFC, less exciting game, especially with the injuries that happened. But the Cincinnati Bengals, they are favored by 10.5, going to New York to face the Jets. Mike White will be starting this game for the Jets. And the spread's still 10.5. So basically, John, do you think Cincinnati will cover?
Yeah, I mean, if Zach Wilson was in the game, maybe there's a chance. But with Mike White, I don't trust it. I think like almost 50% of his passes targeted running backs last week. which
He's just
probably
checking it
just
down.
means, yeah, he doesn't really know what to do downfield. So just throw it to the guy that's open close to you, which is good for Michael Carter owners. But, I don't really trust the Jets with a backup QB, especially against the Bengals team is rolling.
Yeah, I think this is more just Vegas. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of, I don't want to say sleeping, but just not giving the Bengals their respect, which is odd because usually Vegas is, I don't know. Like, I'm concerned. Like, is there something that we don't know? Like, the Bengals, like, is Jamar Chase have like a secret injury that no one knows? I just don't understand why it's not more. But regardless, yeah, I'm going with Cincinnati as well. I expect this offense can do. I mean, the Lions kind of gelling together. They're getting a run game going. Obviously, Joe Burrow and the pass game are clicking, and the defense, like we mentioned, not an all-star defense, but they're middle of the pack. And at the rate, and how well this offense is playing, that's all you need. And the defense has been solid enough to get a few stops each game, and to help their offense out. So, yeah, I am going with Cincinnati also. So a bit of a non-shocker there. Sorry, people, but we want to be right. Now, going on to another big spread, the LA Rams, they are favored by 14.5, going to the Houston Texans. John, do you think they'll cover?
Yeah, we've seen the Houston Texans play the Cardinals, the Bills. They played some high-scoring offenses, and they weren't able to do much against them. So yeah, I'm just keeping it simple. Not going to pick the Texans like I have in the past.
Yep, I'm right with you. Rams are on a mission, and we gave credit to the Lions. I'm gonna give credit to the Texans. They come out usually real early, and you keep it close. Like last week, I was like, oh, it's like 5-0. I was like, hey, and then they didn't score. They got 31 unanswered. So, they just don't have much talent. And obviously, we kind of know why. They depleted the resources, bad contracts. So, hopefully, from the Houston fans, especially the ones I know that have been through this, hopefully they can. Hopefully, this nightmare will be over soon sometime. But we'll see. But for now, we have to live it. We both went LA Rams there to cover. Now going on to, I believe this is the start of the 3 o'clock games. If that wasn't the start of the 3 o'clock games, but the other LA team, the LA Chargers, they are at SoFi Stadium this week. And they are favored by 5.5, hosting the New England Patriots. So, John, what are your thoughts here?
This was one of the tougher ones. The Patriots are just one of those weird teams where their record isn't amazing. 2 of their wins are against the Jets, but also they have Bill Belichick. Mac Jones is pretty good.
They gave the Bucs a run for their money, too.
Yeah, and they're keeping some of these top teams. The Cowboys game went to overtime. The Bucs game, they could have won, but the rain and the missed field goal. So I'm going to go with the Patriots here. Maybe it's partially because Justin Herbert is coming off of the worst game of his career 2 weeks ago. He did get a bye week, so they do have some time to prepare for the Patriots here. So I'd be comfortable if I'm wrong on this one. But also last year when they played, Bill had the answers for the Chargers and what they want to do offensively. It is a new coaching staff. It is a new scheme, all that stuff. So maybe they'll be ready for it. But I'm going to go safe here. I'm going to take the Patriots and the points. It's tough to bet against Bill Belichick and think that, they're going to get blown out because he tends to keep games close, especially with Mac Jones not turning the ball over.
Yeah. I'm right with you. And I think Chargers kind of got run on by Baltimore, and their run defense is a bit susceptible. And I think New England's going to want to do that, especially to help their defense out, keep the ball away from Justin Herbert as much as possible. And Mac Jones has been pretty good the past few weeks too. Like he's been getting better and better, and it seems like the offense is getting a little bit better. I know it's the Jets last week, but seem to be more in sync on offense, and the defense is still pretty good. And I think, especially John mentioned last year. I know it's a new coaching staff, but regardless, it's Bill Belichick. He's great, not against rookie quarterbacks, just young quarterbacks, because he throws so many different looks and disguises, and there's different concepts at you that you may probably have never seen before, dealt with before. So it wouldn't shock me if they do win and or cover, but I think if anything, this will be a close game, and maybe they win by a field goal, or obviously that's what I'm hoping, since I'm picking New England to cover, to be within the spread. So I am going New England as well, but this will definitely be an exciting game to watch on Sunday. But now, Just FYI, this is where we start going really into our string of differences. I think this is differences from here on out. At Seattle, like we just mentioned, Lumen Stadium, whatever it's called. Anyway, they are favored by 3.5, hosting Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. John, who do you got here?
This was another tough one because I don't really believe in Jacksonville, but I also don't really believe in Geno Smith. So I'm going to take the Jags here. I don't feel confident about it. It's just Geno has not really impressed me. Tyler Lockett has almost been like freezed out of the offense, just not really getting involved much. Chris Carson obviously still wasn't healthy either. And even last week, DK Metcalf didn't get a lot of targets. He really just had that one massive play and otherwise wasn't really a factor. So, I mean, it was against a tough Saints defense, and Jacksonville's definitely not on that level. So I think they'll have more success. But I also think that Trevor Lawrence and James Robinson could have success against the Seattle defense. So, yeah, I'm going with Jacksonville here. Once again, don't ever feel confident picking Jacksonville, but I'm going for it.
Yeah, I'm actually going with Seattle. I know we've been very critical of their defense, and rightly so, and I still am, but especially with Trevor Lawrence, Seattle does throw some weird blitzes and things like that just because they know their defense stinks, so they're just trying crazy stuff to hopefully get a turnover or a stop. So I just don't think that Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence will have the answers for that. And I know it was a tough game against the Saints last week, but they still hung tough, even though, and I think we can say the Saints are still a pretty talented team, definitely more talented than Jacksonville. And then on the flip side, Jacksonville's defense, definitely not as good as the Saints. I think Seattle will be able to run the ball more, which is what they're going to want to do, especially with Geno Smith in hand. And I would imagine they maybe open things up a little bit more on the passing game off that because it wasn't really open last week. Now, once again, Marshawn Lattimore had a great game against DK, except for the one play. And, Tyler Lockett, it just seems like he's not in sync with Geno, because as opposed to Russell, which is understandable. But, I think Seattle will win this game and cover. But it would not shock me if Jacksonville wins and/or keeps it within 3. But, going with Seattle here. Also playing at home, too. I know Trevor's been to different colleges and but Tulsa man's a little different than the other places, so I'm factoring that in too. So there is one of our differences. Now going on to Denver, they are at Mile High at Denver. They are favored by 3.5, hosting the Washington football team. Who you got here, Don?
Once again, another tough one, but I'm taking Denver. Jerry Jeudy's coming back this week. So I think that Denver has the weapons, Cortland Sutton, Jeudy, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, Noah Fant, to have some success against this Washington team. I am a little worried because Washington, as bad as their defense has been, does still get pressure. They're not converting it necessarily into sacks, but they're getting pressure. And Teddy Bridgewater has been holding the ball a bit too long, as we talked about, I think, last week. So that worries me. But overall, I also just don't really believe in the Washington offense. Antonio Gibson has been fumbling. Scary Terry seems like the only really consistent option they have. Taylor Heineke's okay, but he has more turnover-worthy plays than he does touchdowns. So I'm going with Denver here because I think their defense could, maybe cause a turnover or two. And I think that Teddy and his conservative play can have some success here. And hopefully rely on his playmakers to make stuff happen.
Yeah, so I went with Washington. I like what I saw from their defense a little bit last week. They seem to be finishing more plays. Maybe that's more Jack Del Rio's gets kudos for that maybe. But their offense, especially against Denver's interior of their defense, teams have been able to run on Denver. And I think this may be the game that Antonio Gibson gets back going. I certainly hope so as a fantasy owner of him. But even if it's not him, J.D. McKissick's been solid in his absence. And I was really high in William Jackson. I hope he does better this game. But regardless, like John mentioned, I think this Washington defense will do enough to slow down Denver, especially if they can if their offense can run the ball. This is more of a gut feeling for me. I think Washington, if anything, they'll keep it close within 3, but I wouldn't be shocked if they pull out a win here because they do desperately need one to stay alive in the playoff race as well. Because your Cowboys are running away with the division. So, but yeah, now going on to the next one here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are favored by 5.5, going to New Orleans to play in whatever that stadium was that we mentioned earlier. So, John, who are you going with here for this divisional matchup?
I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay. The Jameis Winston experience just scares me against the Tampa defense, especially since their receivers just not a whole lot to trust. I feel like the one way that you can really attack Tampa is by attacking that secondary, and it'll be interesting to see if they can do that with Jameis, with the guys they have. I think Kamara could still have a good game, but they have athletic linebackers like Devin White who can really make things happen and stop Kamara from dominating in the receiving game. So I don't know. I'm more worried about Jameis and what that offense is going to provide against Tampa, to where Tampa, I know what I'm going to get with Tom Brady. I know what I'm going to get with that defense. So I'm playing it safe here with Tampa.
Yeah, I'll go with New Orleans. I think, like I mentioned, Seattle, they have a good front four that will be able to slow down the run game. That's what they did for the most part, the 2 meetings last year. I still have Marshawn Lattimore, who we know is great against Mike Evans.
Yeah, Mike Evans is going to get locked up probably.
Yeah,
again.
So, and no Antonio Brown. So, I mean, they'll be able to get, maybe shade some help over on to Chris Godwin. And I don't think there's going to be Gronk. I'm not sure. But regardless... Sorry, I was trying to watch a bad game. Regardless, I think the Saints' offense will be good enough. We've seen them incorporate Kamara more. That is the concern for me, though, is their pass game good enough to take advantage of the Buccaneers secondary? And I would imagine so. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Taysom Hill this game, just to be used as either wide receiver or tight end, whatever Sean Payne likes to do. But I fully expect Jameis to try to... I think he'll try to have his best game here. I think he's going to really try to play for the win, just kind of a revenge game against the Bucs. And I think Sean Payne's going to put him in positions to do so, to take advantage of that. So I am going with the Saints. I would have picked them to win if this was a pick 'em, but it's a 5.5 point spread. So hopefully they at least, if they do lose, they lose closely for me. Now going on to the Sunday nighter. Your Dallas Cowboys favored by only 2.5 at Minnesota. I'm guessing they're factoring in the Dak injury maybe. But regardless, John, are you sticking with your Cowboys or are you going with the Vikings?
I'm going with the Cowboys here. They're 6-0 against the spread on the year. The Vikings are talented. I think their offense should have success against us. The Cowboys, I mean, their defense, I say it every week, they cause turnovers, but they're still giving up big plays. I think they can cause a turnover because Kirk Cousins in prime time isn't amazing. But overall, I think it could turn into a shootout. And if that's the case, I'm going to pick my Cowboys in this one just because of the way that they've been able to attack teams this year. But it does worry me with the Dak injury. I imagine, I'll say this, if Dak doesn't play, I might change the pick because I assume the spread's going to change. I don't know if you'd change the pick. I imagine you wouldn't. But yeah, so I'll put that caveat in there because I have been following reports online. Everybody says that Dak is fine, but I think just based off of last year, the position they're in right now, do you risk it? It's on the same leg. It's his calf. You don't want to mess up anything on that leg. So do you risk it in a game where you can afford to lose it because of the division race? So that's the only thing that concerns me. But I'm sticking with the Cowboys if Dak does play.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really an offensive showdown. Minnesota can run or pass, and I expect them to lean more on the run game to maybe help their defense get a breather and keep the Dallas offense off the field. Because especially if Dak is at least even close to 100%, I expect your offense to have no issues against the Vikings defense. But yeah, I feel like it's more of a gut call, but I'm going with Minnesota. I think if anything, they'll keep it close. But this has been a team I think their offense will keep them in. I think that especially with Dalvin Cook, they're also off a bye. I think your Cowboys are off a bye too. So level playing field there. But regardless, I just got a gut feeling here. I think Minnesota either wins or keeps this very close to help kind of lessen the Kirk Cousins primetime narrative. And also they really need to get the win. So I'm going with Minnesota there. And now going to the Monday nighter, Kansas City. At Kansas City, they are favored by 9.5, hosting the New York Giants. John, who do you got for this matchup?
I'm gonna go with the Chiefs here. I know that the spread's big and the Chiefs have been pretty poor this year, but they're still. I think they have a touchdown on like 35% of their drives, which is good for second in the league. So they're still putting up touchdowns a lot. It's just, they're turning the ball over, and that's sort of been the Achilles heel. I think they can clean it up this week. I don't really have a lot of faith in the Giants. And I know that the Chiefs defense hasn't been great, but I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Jones is good for a turnover or two. So yeah, I'm really just banking on the Chiefs returning to the Chiefs of old. They have been losing games, but I mean, if we put into perspective, the teams they're losing to are like the Bills, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Titans. These are all playoff teams. The Giants are not that. So I'm taking the Chiefs here. If I'm wrong, then man, I am worried about Kansas City. Even if they win this one, if I'm wrong, I'm worried because this shouldn't be close if Kansas City can do what they're supposed to.
Yeah. So I think Kansas City will win, but I think the Giants will keep this game close. I think they'll cover the spread. I'm just not a big believer in the Chiefs' defense, and especially the Giants do get Saquon back. They can attack him different ways. Daniel Jones has been solid this year, and especially I think he should be getting some of their weapons back. And I think Slayton's questionable too to come back. I think Shepard will be there regardless. So, I expect the Giants kind of keep this close. I still expect Kansas City to move the ball, but I wouldn't be shocked if it is close because the Giants defense, very similar philosophy to the Titans, which came from New England. And I would say that it's close, but I think the Giants secondary is better talent-wise, even though they did lose Jabril Peppers, better talent-wise than the Titans, especially last week since they were missing some guys. But yeah, at this point for me, for Kansas City, in terms of blowing teams out, I got to see it to believe it. I got to see that they can, play a clean game and win a clean game because they haven't really done that all year. They've, won some games, but not in the dominating, clean fashion that they have in previous years that we've seen them. So sorry, but I just got to see it to believe it right now. So I'm going with the Giants here to cover, but I still think Kansas City will win. It's just, like I said, I just don't have much trust in them to take care of business that way. So